The second part of a major Ferrari F1 upgrade has helped strengthen its position as McLaren's nearest challenger after another Charles Leclerc podium finish, but he's warned it's still not enough. Ferrari has had a very up and down 2025 so far, but is looking a little more secure in second place in the championship as it bids to take advantage of Mercedes' recent decline and Red Bull's current over-reliance on Max Verstappen. To that end, Ferrari introduced a new suspension at the Belgian Grand Prix with revised geometry understood to also feature a modified central damper, which is meant to stop the car's potential being so limited by setup and ride height compromises. These changes should allow Ferrari better platform control and to run at the lower ride heights originally envisaged when it first designed the car, but which had to be revised after the plankwear disqualification for Lewis Hamilton in China. Ferrari has had to be very wary of that problem in the races since, hence not hitting the heights of Hamilton's sprint pole and win in Shanghai. The new suspension, together with a floor upgrade that Ferrari got onto the car for the Austrian Grand Prix earlier in the summer, is meant to finally turn the page on that troublesome setback. That would ideally set Ferrari up for a much stronger second half of the season, and maybe even let Leclerc and Hamilton fight for victories. But even though Leclerc was on the podium for the 5th time this year after beating Verstappen's Red Bull to 3rd place at Spa, a first Grand Prix victory of 2025 still seems like it's well out of reach for now. Leclerc's reaction to the upgrade was quietly content. He went into qualifying at Spa expecting to be 4th, but with a significant gap in front, so to be ahead of Verstappen and just over 0.3 of a second behind Lando Norris's pole position time on such a long lap was encouraging. However, Leclerc was at pains not to get carried away. He said, "As always, especially for our team, everything is hyped up a lot." And while the upgrade was a step in the right direction, it was very fine differences over a whole lap and only feels a little bit different. This upgrade is speculated to be worth no more than 1/10 of a second over a single qualifying lap, but it's feasible this also opens up a window which allows a better range of setups, particularly with regards to the ultra-sensitive ride height on these ground effect F1 cars, which the team can then fine-tune to find even more lap time. Scope for this was always likely to be limited at Spa, given this was a sprint weekend featuring only a single practice session. Leclerc certainly felt something good with this upgrade. He said Ferrari's delivered what was expected and called that really positive. But having finished 20 seconds behind the winning McLaren in Belgium, Leclerc admitted, "We are all aware that this is not enough." In pipping Red Bull to being best of the rest, all Ferrari's really done is matched its previous best of the current season, and as McLaren and Red Bull continue to bring upgrades of their own, of varying sizes, the goalposts keep moving too. Perhaps most encouraging for Leclerc was that he felt confident in the car and able to push in something closer to his usual dynamic style in qualifying. At Silverstone, he lamented what he characterised as not doing the job in qualifying this year in general, but he now feels this new version of the Ferrari allows him to be more consistent. And it's that previous lack of consistency, the difficulty he was having in dancing the car right on the edge, that meant his usual qualifying performances prior to Spa had lacked the great spark he's usually associated with producing. Ferrari conducted a filming day at Mugello over a week before Spa with both Hamilton and Leclerc driving to get an early feel for those rear suspension modifications the team had been working on for several months. But two factors limited how much information Ferrari generated from the race weekend itself: the weather and the fact its cars had such contrasting races. While Leclerc was surprised to exceed his own expectations, Hamilton's weekend was undermined by shock qualifying disappointments that he labelled unacceptable. The 7-time world champion went from a pit lane start to 7th in the Belgian Grand Prix and won the fan vote for F1's driver of the day, but that didn't hide the fact his Ferrari was capable of much more than Hamilton delivered. Significant qualifying mistakes prevented him scoring many more points than he did, as he was knocked out in Q1 in qualifying for both the sprint and the Grand Prix. Hamilton's first SQ1 lap was too slow after correcting an oversteer moment at the crucial downhill Stavelot right-hander, and then on his final run he spun at the chicane after locking his car's rear brakes. In Grand Prix qualifying he needed a second run to progress to Q2 and did enough on that final lap, but cut the corner at the top of Eau Rouge, so had the lap time deleted for exceeding track limits. As Hamilton put it, all the testing, the filming day we did, and all the preparation, and then we come here and we don't make it through Q1. It's unacceptable. That proved crucial in defining a weekend where he scored just 6 points compared to Leclerc's 20. Ferrari's drivers are among the most prone to emotional reactions, especially when things go badly, and Hamilton's feedback around the upgrade after qualifying was a little concerning. Asked if the car felt better, he replied, "No, not really." Hamilton said the main limitation is still the rear end, and also dismissed a question about whether there was a change of feeling on the rear axle with a straightforward "no." Starting from the pit lane with a new engine and a bigger rear wing for the wet conditions, Hamilton made decent progress in the first part of the Grand Prix. He passed some slower cars on track and climbed well inside the top 10 thanks to a successful gamble on being the first to switch from intermediates to slicks as the track dried out. But in the dry phase of the race, Hamilton's progress stalled, and the fact he was stuck behind Alex Albon's Williams and running more downforce compromises his feedback about how the upgraded Ferrari performed, because the circumstances were totally different to Leclerc's. And there was actually another Leclerc caveat too, that the improved grip he felt at Spa seemed to be there for everyone due to rapid circuit evolution after being partly resurfaced last year. Apart from Ferrari just being Ferrari and endlessly trying to play things down, this fits into why Ferrari wants to keep a lid on the upgrade hype. There's not only more to do to optimise this package, but it's too small a sample set to judge the benefits, and therefore a long way to go before Ferrari can hope to achieve its objective of winning races. Ferrari's work behind the scenes has gone beyond readying the 2025 upgrades while progressing with early 2026 car development. Hamilton's been particularly vocal about changes he's pushing for in the background, and there's also been an under-the-radar reshuffle of his engineering team. A new performance engineer was brought on board to work with Hamilton and his race engineer Riccardo Adami, which Hamilton admitted wasn't an ideal thing to do mid-season. While Ferrari has declined to offer details on who the new performance engineer is, we understand they've been promoted from another role within Ferrari. Hamilton also suggested it's someone he's worked with previously, most likely at Mercedes. Hamilton said that together they had gone through a steep learning curve at Spa, as it's not easy to switch engineers mid-season anyway, but there were also several extra variables at play: the weather, the new rear suspension, and a change related to Ferrari's brake system. The last of those is another example of previously unseen or unknown Ferrari work, which only emerged after Hamilton suffered that unusual spin in sprint qualifying on Friday. During the weekend, Hamilton blamed that spin on a new component, which we understand relates to a change that meant the rear brakes had a bit more initial stopping power than Hamilton was used to. Leclerc has been running this new configuration for a few races already, and was also caught out by the new braking characteristics in Canada, but Spa was Hamilton's first experience. And it's something that both he and Ferrari think will have benefits longer term, even though it was a little tricky to adjust to at first. The upshot of all this was Hamilton felt the tricky Spa weekend would be easy to put behind him, as he actually feels confident about his and Ferrari's recent progress. Before Spa, Hamilton had out-qualified Leclerc in 3 of the previous 4 races across Spain, Canada, Austria and Britain. In that time, Hamilton had been 0.045 seconds faster than Leclerc on average in Q3. Admittedly, the races were a bit trickier. Hamilton was beaten by Leclerc in Spain and Canada, despite starting ahead in both, then was denied his desire to switch to an alternative one-stop strategy while trailing Leclerc in Austria. At Silverstone though, where Hamilton always excels, he was comfortably the stronger Ferrari driver, especially in the wet Grand Prix. If Ferrari can now hit its peaks more consistently, Hamilton will need to show he can rise with that, because Leclerc has shown time and again he's capable of getting the absolute maximum out of a fast Ferrari, if he's not held back by its limitations. Hamilton's often been capable of doing an equal or occasionally better job with a compromised car, and he would point to the moments he's been able to excel himself, the China Sprint for example, or his strong form at Silverstone. But his obvious peaks are rarer than Leclerc's. That's why Hamilton has no Grand Prix podiums to Leclerc's 5 so far in 2025. But even though the peak results have been somewhat lacking, Hamilton says he's been working hard behind the scenes to try to put Ferrari on a better footing for the future. He said during the Spa weekend that he's been sending Ferrari documents about various things he thinks can be improved across car development and areas of the team's structure, and revealed that he's sat in several meetings with Ferrari chairman John Elkann and CEO Benedetto Vigna, as well as team boss Fred Vasseur and senior technical department figures. Hamilton's desire is to avoid ending his Ferrari stint in the same way as fellow champions Fernando Alonso and Sebastian Vettel, who spent a combined 11 seasons at Maranello between 2010 and 2020, scoring 25 race victories between them, but no title. Hamilton admits it's crunch time because at 40 years old there are not many seasons left for him in F1, so if he's to avoid repeating the disappointment of the Alonso and Vettel years, he needs Ferrari to up its game, and fast.